Hi and welcome back to another episode of Slurp or Skip. I'm Jessica and very pleased to introduce today Andrew Bird, who is currently a strategic consultant, formerly a director at Selfridges, and then previously before that, head of trading at Marks & Spencer's and a wine buyer at Sainsbury's. So obviously knows a lot of stuff about wine, hence the lineup here today. So Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely delighted to be here.
So today we've got 3 wines to try, very different as you can see from the lineup here. We have an English wine, Rosé from Gusbourne. We have Echo Falls, a fruit fusion wine, and then finally Wednesday's Domaine, which is a red wine from Spain. So let's get into it. First up here we have Gusbourne 2025 English Rosé. Nice pale rosé, which is exactly my kind of rosé. Gusbourne. Beautiful packaging. Are you a big rosé drinker?
Yeah, I drink most wines, and definitely rosé is part of my portfolio. I think what's interesting here is Gusbourne, of course, are probably one of the more old school English wine producers. That helped drive the huge growth in English sparkling wine. So I think it's probably their fizz, their method champenoise fizz that they're most famous for, as with most English vineyards, English wineries. But clearly here they've got enough grapes to make a push into the still wine market. And of course, rosé is just like by far away the fastest growing part of the still wine category over the past 10 years or so. Specifically this quite light, dare I say, Provençal-style rosé in a beautiful clear glass bottle. So you can see what they're doing here.
Exactly, and you know you're talking to a massive francophile here, so Provençal is exactly the way forward. Well, should we try?
Absolutely.
Cheers, or
So,
santé,
yes.
or English we should say
Santé.
cheers.
Yeah, nice pale colour. I mean, it's kind of doing the whispering angel thing here, I think. Lovely nose actually, loads of strawberry. I was a little bit worried because England is not as blessed with sunshine as the south of France, as I think you probably know better than I. So a bit harder to get sunshine into the glass, but I think on the nose, yeah, there's a lovely aroma there.
I think that's lovely, and a very, very good replica of the French Provençal rosé that I know and love.
Yeah, that is very nice. There's definitely a firmer acidity. It's a more grown-up wine. It's a bit more of a lip smacker, and unsurprisingly, Kent is not Nice, but
not yet.
No, indeed, not yet. And the fact that actually you can make a rosé like this now, maybe 30 years ago, I don't think you could. Yeah, I think this is good. Some little hors d'oeuvres maybe needed because it really does get the get the juices flowing.
It's very, it replicates the Provençal rosé that I know and love. So I'm interested of your sort of opinion on English wine and whether that's, just having a moment or whether it's very much here to stay.
Oh, it's here to stay, isn't it? I mean, you can't plant as many vineyards as England's actually done over the past 2 or 3 decades and then just change your mind. Wine is a long-term industry. Once you've got stuck in, you need to stay the course. And a lot of the people behind English vineyards have got pretty deep pockets as well. Usually they've made money doing something else and then they've spent it on this wonderful kind of indulgence and often made a big success of their brands. So English wine is here to stay. I think I would probably separate sparkling wine, which I think is genuinely world class. It's as good as champagne, the champenoise method that's made particularly in Sussex and in Kent, but increasingly other counties as well. So that's a real success story. Still wine, jury's still out, I think, just because our weather it's just not quite sunny enough. We're warm enough, but we don't get quite enough days of sunshine consistently year in, year out. So when it is a really sunny summer, particularly towards the the real ripening season, then we can make great whites and rosés and even red. But when it's not such a good summer, the wines can be a bit lean.
Yes.
But this is a pretty good one. I think there's a plenty of ripeness here while still having a good backbone of acidity to it as well. So it feels like a proper grown-up rosé. You want it chilled, yeah, you want the sun to be out, don't you? And a bit of food. So yeah, I think the future is probably bright, even if it is actually due to global heating, which isn't anything.
Takes the edge off slightly.
Yeah, well, we don't want to wish it on anyone, but yeah, I think this is a long-term opportunity for England.
Great. And at this sort of price point, particularly when you think about the price of English wine, not just in the still department, but actually in sparkling. And I very much agree that English sparkling wine is just as good as champagne. But obviously the price point, I think people, while there's still that education piece around understanding the quality and taste of English wine, it's quite hard for the average consumer to justify that price. For something like this, what do you think consumers, are they buying the liquid, the story, status, English wine, what sort of justifies it in their mind?
Well, I don't want to be cliche, but you're buying into a kind of lifestyle, aren't you, when you buy this kind of rosé that just looks lovely, that has the clear glass in it. The big boy of the category is Whispering Angel, of course, now owned by Moet Hennessy. That sells at round about, it's about £20. It depends exactly where you buy it from, maybe 18 in some places, 22, 24 in others, from the off trade. So people are willing to spend that. I mean, I know from my former employers, it's one of the biggest selling wines. So one of the things that's made rosé, particularly Provençal rosé, Southern French rosé, so successful is actually it's a very commercially attractive proposition to those brand owners. It's not terribly expensive making rosé wine in the south of France. You've just got nature's blessing, you've got the sunshine, and the grapes are quite high yield, and yet they can fetch a really high price. £20 for example in the off trade, or often quite a lot more than that. So there is a whopping great margin there available for brand owners. And when you look at the kind of brand owners that now own some of these brands, these are brand owners used to making, spirit type margins. So you can see it's a really profitable sector to be in. A lot harder to do that in England, I think, because the cost, the input costs are a lot higher, the yields are lower. So I suspect this wine here, which I think retails for probably nearer to £30 than £20, that's probably a fair price for them to charge. They want to make some money, but that reflects the higher cost of doing business in the UK, certainly making wine in the UK.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, am I right in saying that actually within the slightly declining wine market, that rosé is actually the one that's propping up and seeing sort of, that growth? Yeah,
I think it's a style of wine that people want to be seen drinking, and increasingly, in recent years, this is obviously completely social media driven. Being seen to enjoy products is a part of enjoying them, rather than just drinking them. So it's those products which look the part, create the aspirational lifestyle we all want to be part of. I know I do. So Andrew, if I had to ask, is this a slurp or a skip? Oh, I think this is a slurp, the Gusbourne, yeah. I think it's a lovely liquid. Great, and I very much agree. So the next one that we will try is Echo Falls Fruit Fusion Summer Berries at 9% alcohol. So at 9%, obviously comes in at a lower duty band, so that allows them to hit a cheaper price point. Pretty complicated the way duty works now. A huge headache for the wine industry, needlessly complicated, I think. But it has driven a change in the market. Whether that's a change that's reflected in quality, we'll see. Yes, I think it does make me sad that duty occupies such a high proportion. So actually, when you're on that threshold, every little bit extra does obviously go into the wine making itself. So initial thoughts, Well, it's also pink, but a very different shade of pink. It's an unashamed pink, isn't it? It's more kind of Valentine's at a service station than, that's a really good expression. Than smoked salmon. I'd say it's berry forward. Very sweet. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's exactly as I thought it was going to taste. I suspect when the director of the Echo Falls brand presented what they were going to be doing with this brand and the flavour variants to the executive directors of Accolade Wines, which is obviously like one of the big multinational wine businesses. I don't think they had a picture of me on that mood board of the kind of people who are going to be drinking it and taking selfies of themselves with their friends. So probably not aimed at me in any way at all. I mean, is it wine? It's kind of made from grapes. It's wine adjacent. It's clearly in a 75 centilitre bottle. I mean, all the language is the language of wine. So I would say this is in the wine category, but that's a very inward looking kind of discussion anyway. So it's clearly designed to be consumed in the way that wine has always been consumed, as in there are several portions and you're supposed to share it, I would have thought, with at least one person, maybe more. So it's doing that job. It is sweet, but then one of my first jobs in wine buying, I looked after all the German wine and an Eastern European wine, as it was called then, for a now defunct specialist off-license chain that disappeared many years ago. And the amount of Liebfraumilch and Lüttimer Lasky Riesling that we sold, they were at least as sweet as this.
Really?
So there's always been a sweet tooth out there, and this is the kind of beverage that's filling that need now. But yeah, it's for a childish palate. I'll be snobby now.
Yeah.
And that's not really my palate.
I agree.
Yeah,
and I think actually, regardless of whether it's a younger consumer or not, I think not you and I, but I think generally consumer palates are becoming sweeter, and like we've seen it loads in cider, you've got old moot with berries and cherries and all sorts. I think people are gravitating towards those types of flavour profiles.
Yeah, I think you make a great point talking about the cider category actually, because they really got in there pretty early with the infusions of berry flavours. So yeah, that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah.
I do wonder whether there are parts of the international wine market that simply have too much wine. They have too many grapes, so they're looking for other things to do with it, and that's as much a driver as this kind of MPD as actually meeting a particular customer need.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's very well. I think it's well executed. I think the Stelvin cap and the pictures of fruits and things on there is very jolly. It's a technically proficient product, I think. But
I think it will certainly appeal to the audience, in which it's intended for. I've got an interesting question here is, do we think, in your opinion, is this innovation, or is it a sign the category can't recruit new drinkers the kind of traditional way through, the likes of Gusbourne that we've just tasted? Obviously, I appreciate it's an entirely different portion of people that we're targeting, but is that why we talked about the declining wine category, why people are having to sort of go down different routes to bring people into wine? Because again, the question is this a wine? Is it not? Is it wine adjacent? For all intents and purposes, it falls under wine.
yeah, I'd put it in the class of what I call technical innovation. So there is clearly, it is NPD by any definition. I think it's a product that has come about because it's technically possible to make a product like this. And yes, it probably is taking from what would have been traditional wine, because of course this isn't technically pure wine, is it? It's a wine style drink, as they used to be called. So yeah, it's eroding, if you like, traditional wine's market share. But again, I think that's an internally focused discussion and doesn't really matter. Brands, producers want to create products that people want to drink, and that's the important thing, not whether something is defined as wine or not wine, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a very smart observation. So, slurp or skip, if I had to push you on this?
You don't have to push me very hard. I would, on subjective grounds, I would skip. This is too sweet and too aggressively berry forward for me.
I hate to say, but I also agree. So it would be a skip for me. However, I do think it's very smart innovation for consumers that have a sweeter palate and want to be drinking wine in a slightly different way to kind of the traditional wine as we know it.
Yes, and I think the Echo Falls is a very affordable price point by any measure.
Yes, $5.50 for that.
Yeah, I mean that's a very cheap bottle of wine, and let's call it wine. So that is a key part of its success, obviously.
Yes. So last but not least, we have Wednesday's Domaine. This is a British company, but actually this is Tempranillo, so Spanish wine. Oh, lovely colour. So I'm being served quite a lot of content on Instagram from Wednesday's Domaine, so I must be very much their target audience.
Well, I think they're very big and very progressive actually in terms of their comms. Yeah, I mean, if you look at their website, I mean, I think it's fascinating for any student of of communications and brand communications to see how they're positioning it. They almost tell the story of the brand, and they've got a huge kind of Q&A section on there where they're at real pains to say we're not about being teetotal and we're not about cutting down or not enjoying alcohol. We are, a lifestyle choice around, not feeling too grim the following day.
Yeah, and I think that's and I can really sort of get on board with that. And I think recent things that we've read are around actually the people that are moderating and turning to sort of, whether it's lower ABV or no alcohol at all, are often the ones that are heavier drinkers than the kind of teetotals. So I can get on board with that from a lifestyle perspective. I think I love the branding, and again, you were saying at the beginning about, choosing the wine is often a part of a kind of who you are and what the lifestyle suggests. I think I love the branding.
Yeah, I mean, and they're doing something completely different. Clearly it's supposed to be a wine, it's supposed to be enjoyed in a session like a bottle of wine would be, but they've been very careful to avoid all the traditional vocabulary of wine, the language of wine. So there are no grape varieties on the front. I think they use various kind of French sounding aspirational names like Elan and things like that, which is quite clever because it means it's less comparable then to an actual wine. It's 6.5%, which I think is really interesting because I believe this brand started with a 0 alcohol range, and if you look at their website you can see there's a story about how they decided they needed to have some wines that were low alcohol, that had 6.5%. They've obviously settled on that as the perfect compromise. So that tells a story in itself that actually 0 alcohol wine can be pretty difficult. I think can be pretty challenging on the palate. But once you've got a bit of mouthfeel from the alcohol, and I'm always terribly worried when I'm faced with a de-alcoholized wine, because I worry I know what it's going to taste like, which is basically had something stripped out of it, which is fundamental to what wine is. So I worry, but I haven't tried it yet. So let's see. Will it be a slurp or a skip face?
Oh, well, I hope it's a slurp. But yes, to your point, I think alcohol-free wine has such a long way to go. So putting something at a 6.5% has hopefully the mouthfeel that makes it sort of a bit better.
And it's a great colour. I mean, it looks like a red wine. It's
Smells
Tempranillo
nice.
from Spain. It kind of admits on the back. It doesn't make a big play of it, but obviously that's you can imagine why they're buying a good, full, plummy Spanish base wine. Yeah, there's some fruitiness on the palate, but there is a kind of lightweight character to it. I say on the palate, I mean on the nose. But actually, most people don't smell their wine. They don't do a WSET course, do they? They just get it down their throat. So that's maybe less important, but you can immediately tell it doesn't have the volatility of, if you like, traditional wine, full strength wine.
So having just tried a little bit, I think it's definitely got the nice mouthfeel that I was hoping and expecting, but a little bit thin on the overall taste of it. Now that might be because it's 6.5%.
Well, it probably is.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
It sort of starts, in my opinion, and you're far more experienced with this, but it starts off feeling quite sort of full-bodied-ish, and then it falls quite thin at the end.
You can tell it was once a traditional wine. There's some tannin in there. There is definitely some fruit, but it has had some character stripped out of it. And I don't want to criticise this too much because I really respect them for trying really hard to produce something that is palatable, and I think it's not unpleasant at all. But there is something I think about wine which requires it to be, at least 10% ABV in order for all the parts to balance, I think. Of course, you can dilute wine with sparkling water. A spritz is kind of perfectly nice thing to do, but that is sparkling water. You're kind of making it into something else. You don't tend to water down wine with still water, do you? Unless you're a French person giving it to their kids or something. No, I think unfortunately this does just this has had something taken away from it, which makes it into a drink which is less less acceptable to me. And the interesting thing is here, I mean, it's 6.5%, but I don't think this is a cheap bottle at all, is it?
No,
I
it's
looked
not.
at their otherwise very good website, but I think it's something like £18 or something like that.
Exactly.
I think they have some quite big multi-buys that you can buy into, so probably you can save a third of that price by buying 3 or 6. But still, you know, you're buying what would be considered a premium wine in any kind of supermarket or kind of off-license context. And I think I would rather, you know, buy a wine and just drink half of it and then drink half the other day, and you know, rather than something that's only half the strength.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting decision, I guess, because if you wanted something that felt closer to a wine in the sort of regular traditional sense, but didn't want to go for a completely 0-0 because the market's not there, I think on that basis I will slurp it, because I think it's a really smart in between. I think the only sort of slightly sticking point obviously is the price. Excuse me, as you say, it's quite an expensive way to have a sort of halfway house. But I think, yeah, I really like the branding. I think if I wanted to have something that felt like a wine without being a full-blown, 12.5, 13%er, I think I would slurp that.
Yeah, I think it's technically a pretty good go at de-alkalizing a red wine, which is the hardest wine to do it to as well. I think white wine, rosé wine is a lot more forgiving.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do it with a red, so they've set themselves the biggest challenge here. So, you've got to give them half marks for having a really good go at it, I think. But I'm just not sure. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Okay, so is that going to be a skip for you?
It would be a skip for me, I think, yes.
And then just thinking about sort of the broader market in terms of, moderation, do you think consumers are actually drinking less, or maybe just differently?
They're certainly drinking less in terms of fewer alcoholic units. There are a couple of things going on there. Basically, the people who used to drink a great deal, as in the cohort, are relatively older people now, kind of baby boomers. There are fewer of them around, and they're reaching an age now where they just can't drink quite as much. And then at the younger end, those people have never drunk as much. Many don't drink alcohol at all, but most of the rest don't drink as much as the equivalent generation would have done, 50 years ago, or probably even 30 years ago. Everybody assumes this is about health and wellness. That's a part of it. It's linked also to calorific intake as well. I mean, everybody knows that alcohol is calories, and they're pretty empty calories. But I think there's a really important secondary reason for drinking less, and that is it's so expensive. It's really expensive to drink out and to eat out. There's a cost of living crisis, which is driven obviously by huge inflation and by a cost of doing business crisis. So that, I think, is at least as important as health concerns to younger people who have less money drinking less. So there's probably going to be no end to this trend until things potentially become cheaper again. And I don't know how that's going to happen in the short to medium term.
I think that's a really interesting point, particularly when we've just looked at Echo Falls at £5.50, whether we want to call it wine or not. You can see why people aren't sort of going for the other options, because it's too expensive, to your point. And then I guess the final question that I've been keen to know is, would you give shelf space to a 6.5% wine over a classic region? Sort of like who wins, or is it a bit like a balance of the two?
Well, look, I mean, a bricks and mortar store has limited space, just kind of by definition, although an online store doesn't. So you haven't got quite the same dynamic going on there. But yeah, ultimately, lower alcohol and zero alcohol options are deserving more and more of their space. Does that take, sales away from traditional wines or higher alcohol options? I think it's more the fact that there is a demand for low alcohol, which means they deserve the space, rather than it being pure cannibalization. The market is moving, and retailers are responding to that, rather than retailers do something and therefore that drives the dynamic. So, yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing about non-alcoholic and low alcohol beverages is that there's an incredible diversity, and many of them, you know, if you think of kind of cordials like Bativo, I mean, that's an amazing brand that's doing very, very well now, very premium priced product as well. You know, I would put those in the same ecosystem now as relatively lower alcohol wines. You know, they're all answering the same kind of question, which is people drinking a bit less.
And that is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrew.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. It's been so nice to hear all of your comments and obviously try the 3 wines here today. So catch us next time for another episode of Slurp or Skip.